Recording. Okay, good morning and welcome to Taming the Polar Bears. Today I'm excited to announce a new set of programming for the Polar Bears channel, and today is the first episode. I am very excited to welcome and announce Laura Gibbs, online instructor at the University of Oklahoma, who's going to talk to us about some exciting approaches of hers about growth mindset. Good morning, Laura.
Hey, Brad.
And I know it's afternoon for you there. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background, instructing background at the U of Oklahoma. Now that's home of the Sooners, right?
Home of the Sooners, the Sooner State. I've been teaching online since 2002, so that's a really long time to have been teaching online. And I actually live in North Carolina, so I'm online and not located in Norman, but my students are mostly in Norman. And the two courses that I teach are mythology and folklore, and a course in the Indian epics in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And they're writing intensive courses for students who are probably not thinking of themselves as writers. So that's one way I got into working on growth mindset, is that students would tell me that they're afraid of writing or that they hate to write. And so I knew there were some negative starting points there that I needed to help them get over. And growth mindset has been fantastic for that. So I'm really glad to have a chance to share my experiences with that here.
And that's in my books what a teacher is supposed to do.
Right, and it's a great
students
job.
have these deficits. Well, here's how we figure that out. Okay, so you have a nifty. Now just so the folks joining us here understand, Laura and I know each other through the Google Plus online community. Mm-hmm. We met there about 5 years ago, almost, I'm thinking.
Must be, yep.
As you all know, so-called social media can be awash in all kinds of negative, terrible things, and that's not me. So I quickly started fine-tuning my streams to what I called high-quality content people. And Laura was one of those from the beginning. Never about whining, complaining, the world's coming to an end. It was always, what I like to call solution focused. Mm-hmm. And and I've gotten to know Laura very good in the ensuing 5 years, and people will think, oh, they just don't know what's going on. No. Laura knows what's going on. She's just focused on solutions. So, right. In any case, Laura, what I noticed again and again, and she became familiar with my Taming the Polar Bears, and could see a lot of value in some of my polar bears posts, and that's why we've ended up collaborating like this. But what I noticed again and again was the growth mindset stuff, and she would share that quite freely online. And meanwhile, I'm doing my mental health polar bear stuff, and I just so often thought, wow, this is what I need to hear for starters. I know this stuff, but it's always good to see it repeated and taught in different ways. And Laura has such an interesting multi-approach way to understand, like through the mythology and all these things. So just a wonderful, wonderful narrator and putting these things into ways you and I can understand. Okay, Laura, so with that little Bradonian ramble out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, and we're going to have a technology adventure here. I'm going to try to share my screen. So let's see if that works. I'm going to click on the green share screen, share my entire screen. And there we go. Now, are you seeing my growth mindset course, Brad?
Yeah, and I think you just kind of have to scroll you have to grab your little screenshot thing and drag it up into the corner or something. I had that problem.
Okay. It's so, well, what I haven't gone to the slideshow yet, so let's see what happens when we do that. But what I wanted to explain to people is this is an open course space that I created this summer for my students. I'm still working on it. And this is something anybody can use. So if you look at I made a short, easy to remember address you can use for that. You can just type mindset.lauragibbs.net or growth.lauragibbs.net, and that'll take you to this course, which is it's on the Canvas learning management system platform, which we use at my school. And one of the things I really like about Canvas is you can make a completely open course to share with everybody. And one of the things you'll find in that course is the slideshow. So let me pop that up. How's that going to work, Brad? Is that looking good?
That's looking good.
Okay, well, there we go. This is the slideshow I made. It'll probably take me about 10 minutes or so to run through this. I'll try to stay focused. Growth mindset for the polar bears. And this is a slideshow I put together earlier this week based on some of those points of intersection between the things that Brad does with neuroscience and mental health and the things that I work on in terms of growth mindset, the focus on teaching and learning. And you're going to see a lot of the growth mindset cats in here. That's Mrs. Bean. I don't know if she'll show up for the rest of the video part of our session today, but that's Brad's wonderful Mrs. Bean cat, and I've featured her in the Growth Mindset Cats along with cats. I found a cheeseburger and online at Flickr. I started making these growth mindset cat memes a couple years ago to share with my students because I thought it would just be fun. And it is. It's a way to present ideas to them in a way that is intriguing, sometimes amusing. And the cats are really perfect for this because cats exemplify two of the most important things to understand, I think, about growth mindset. Curiosity, of course, and that openness to adventure and exploring, which cats have. But then there are also fraidy cats, right? And there's that fear element. And what you're going to see is that growth mindset is very much about curiosity and openness and exploring and learning. But there's also fixed mindset where you pull back and you're afraid, you don't want to try new things. And so it's easy to find cat pictures that exemplify that spectrum. And I have a blog full of these mindset cats. If you like that kind of thing, there are hundreds of them. So learning about growth mindset, what I want to do in this presentation is just present some key growth mindset concepts, some mantras that go along with that. I like proverbs and mantras and sayings that will help you focus when you're feeling distracted, and then also some suggestions about where to learn more. And luckily there's tons of online resources for growth mindset because it's become very popular among teachers, especially K through 12 teachers, not so much in higher ed. And lots of great videos and infographics and articles that you can explore on your own. Now, the phrase growth mindset comes from a psychologist at Stanford University, Carol Dweck, who's been working on this for really decades. I think she's about 70 years old now, but she's still going strong, has lots of research going on. She has done several TED Talks, and you can find lots of videos with her online. She is a really inspiring person, and she is the author of this book for a general audience, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. So that is where I got really started learning about her work and applying it to my teaching. Now, this is a graphic you'll see online often that sets up the contrast between the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. Mindsets are about beliefs, right? It's what you believe about yourself and about others. And if you have a growth mindset, you believe that your abilities can be developed. And if you have problems, if you make a mistake, if you experience some kind of failure, well, that's an opportunity to grow. You can learn from those mistakes. If you have a fixed mindset, if you believe that your abilities are limited, that your potential is limited, you're probably going to respond to failure differently, be frustrated by it, reject that opportunity, pull back, and retreat from that situation. And the important thing to understand about growth mindset and fixed mindset, it's not a binary opposition as you see here in this graphic. It really is a spectrum. Nobody is all growth mindset all the time. Nobody is all fixed mindset all the time. Human nature means that you're just going back and forth between these mindsets, between these positions, these attitudes, these beliefs, and acting on them in different aspects of your life at different moments. Sometimes you're going to have a growth mindset. Sometimes you're going to have a fixed mindset. And what I try to work with my students on are the conscious strategies and choices you can use to bring out those fixed mind or growth mindset beliefs and act on them. And one of the things that Carol Dweck's really been emphasizing in her more recent work is the idea of triggers. And what are the things that trigger your fixed mindset? And what can you do when you sort of feel that fixed mindset coming on so that you can move back to the growth side of the spectrum? So that's a kind of quick overview of what growth mindset is about. And when I present this to my students, I break it into 5 different categories that I'll just run through really quickly here so you can see what area might appeal to you the most as you think about growth mindset and what it could do for you in your life, in your studies, in your work. The first area that I think about is goal setting. Aiming high, being willing to take risks, not giving up, always going forward. This is really important for me as a teacher because students tend to reduce their goals in school to just getting an A, to grades. And that's one of the reasons why I was really excited to find growth mindset as a vocabulary, as an attitude to share with my students, because when I would ask them in the past, what are your goals for the class? Without exception, they would say, I want to get an A. Well, with growth mindset, when I ask them about their goals in this bigger context of their life, its purpose, their feelings, their beliefs, I'm able to get them to think about goals beyond just getting an A. And that's important if they're going to have something valuable to take away from the class. Like I said before, curiosity is a big part of growth mindset. Being curious, being creative, seeking out new things, and then just growing your brain. And that's been one of the points of intersection with Brad's work that has really helped me a lot. There's a lot we can learn from neuroscience, the whole concept of neuroplasticity, just what it means in your brain to learn new things. Very powerful stuff. Carol Dweck has also worked on some of the neurological aspects of growth mindset as well. She's a psychologist, but she's a scientist, and she really appreciates how there's a scientific foundation for the kinds of things that we're looking at here. Obviously, growth mindset involves work, being willing to work hard, but also to be patient as you do that, to practice, to stay focused, and to really engage in what you're doing. Engagement is a phrase you hear teachers use a lot. You really want students to be there with you in spirit, not just physically sitting there in the classroom. And as you work, you want to work in a purposeful way so that you're able to improve the quality of your work. You want to be able to learn from your mistakes, get feedback from others, reflect on your progress, and move forward in like I said, a purposeful way, not just random effort, not just banging your head against the wall effort, but effort that's really going to move you towards those goals that we talked about. Now, the learning from your mistakes and using feedback from others sounds great in theory, but in practice, I think we all know that's really hard, right? Because negative criticism is one of the biggest triggers for fixed mindset. It's very hard to get negative feedback, but at the same time, that negative feedback is valuable and important. So that's one of the most important things I work on with my students is how can you learn to accept that feedback and make it useful to you to overcome that initial fear, resentment, shutting things down when you hear something negative so that you can grow from that. And also, just as importantly, how they can learn, my students can learn to give feedback to each other that will really help other students grow and move forward. And that's something that they struggle with a lot. It's not easy, but it's really worth learning how to do that. And then finally, enjoyment, right? And I love that Carol Dweck talks about this too. She talks about bringing back the zest for learning, the joy of learning. There's a lot of good feeling associated with growth mindset. And Brad can tell us more about the neurological basis for that, the dopamine, the neurochemicals that really just make you feel good when you're creating those new connections and learning, enjoying what you learn. So those are the 5 areas of growth mindset that I try to work on with my students. And then for this presentation, I came up with the 5 mantras to think about and to use, so that you can take that big swirl of concepts and focus them into something quick that you can really, bring forward whenever you need it. A popular one with Carol Dweck is The Power of Yet. That's one of the titles of her TED Talks, is The Power of Yet. And the mantra that goes with that is this idea of, I can't do this yet, right? That you acknowledge there are things you can't do, things you want to do that you can't do, and that's okay. You can't do it yet, but you're moving forward, and you can get there. There's a really cute Janelle Monáe video there of the Muppets. I'm not going to play it now, but I put it in the slideshow for anybody who likes the Muppets. I love the Muppets. Big change begins with small steps. So keep that focus too. The work you do is going to be small steps, iterative. You have to be patient. It takes time, but those small steps are going to lead to something big in the end. So it's not about limiting your goals. It's okay to have big goals. In fact, it's great to have big goals, but you also want to remember that you're going to get to that big goal, not all at once, but with those small steps, day by day, one day at a time. Doing what's hard. This is something that Carol Dweck emphasizes a lot. You need to, if you really want to grow, you need to choose tasks that are hard. You need to look at challenges. The vocabulary of the challenge is one that I use a lot with my students. And one of Dweck's criticisms of schools, and I think it's really true, is that the emphasis on grades and getting 100% and getting an A actually encourages students to choose what's easy, so that they can get an A, so that they can get 100%. But then you get bored. You're not experiencing that joy of learning. So Carol Dweck says, set aside that perfectionism and instead embrace what's hard. Do what's hard and learn that way. If you do what's hard, obviously you're running the risk of failure, and that's okay, right? Failure does not define you. Failure hurts, but it does not define me. I'll have students say something like, I'm a failure. That's not it. I am not a failure. I might have failed, and I need to learn from that failure, learn from those mistakes and move on, but it does not define me. And then I love the vocabulary of stretching, right? That metaphor of your brain as a muscle, as something that stretches, as something that gets stronger. The bigger the challenge, the more you stretch. And so there's that vocabulary of challenge again. And so big challenge, big stretch, that's how you're going to grow, including how you're going to grow your brain. So that's just a super quick overview of growth mindset, and then I've got some recommendations of where you can learn more. Like I said, Carol Dweck's book is excellent. It's short, it's focused, it's full of ideas, full of people's stories, quotes from her students, quotes from people who've written to her over the course of time since the book came out. It's a really, really nice book. But you don't even have to buy a book. She has done so many excellent videos that you can just listen to these videos, and some of them are quite long. She's done some quick TED Talks, that are 10, 15 minutes, but she's done some hour-long interviews, like a Google Talk interview, a talk at Stanford recently that was an hour long, this wonderful talk on perfectionism that's about an hour long, where you can learn a lot just from listening to her. And she's got a very distinctive way of speaking, and I find her just charming and encouraging to listen to. So I've got a YouTube playlist where I put a lot of her videos and other videos too. Carol Dweck has also created a foundation called Mindset Works that's coming out of Stanford, and they are sharing materials for parents, teachers, children, and learners of all ages. You'll find videos there and worksheets and information, links. If you use Twitter, they're great to follow at Twitter. So Mindset Works is really excellent. And then, as I showed at the beginning of this presentation, I've got an open course that I have for my students. It's full of articles, infographics, videos, things that I want to share with my students, and you all are welcome to visit that anytime. And there's a feedback form there too. So if you have suggestions about articles I can include or videos, let me know. Like Brad said about social networks, most of what I'm sharing there I've learned about from other people that I interact with at Google Plus and at Twitter. And then finally, there's the blog, the CATS blog, the Growth Mindset CATS blog. And I'm not as active there over the summer, but during the year, I try to publish a new CAT every day or so. So there's always something new during the school year going on at that blog. And so just to sum up real quickly what we did here, I told you I love Sesame Street. So you may have noticed this presentation was brought to you by the number 5, right? We talked about the 5 different mindset concepts, right? Aim high, explore, work hard, improve, and really important, enjoy. I gave you my 5 mindset mantras. Those are just ones that I like. You should make up your own or use those. It's all based on what you want, what you need. And then 5 places to learn more about growth mindset. The book is not free. It's not expensive, though. There's gazillions of used copies out there, super cheap. And then the other things there are just online for anybody to access and use. So I think that's all. You can find me online. I use a fox for my avatar, so you recognize me wherever you find me online. I'm at Twitter, Google Plus, some other places online. And like Brad was saying, Google Plus is a pretty cool place to meet people who are sharing what they're learning on their journey of learning. And I learn something new there every day. I think it's a great space. Okay, that's the presentation. Now I have to figure out how not to share my screen anymore. Oh my gosh.
I think you just scroll up to the top and there's
Stop
a stop
share.
There you go.
There we go.
Now, did I survive that? I did not. So I'll refresh my screen. There I am.
There we go.
Well, fantastic, Laura. I have to. All the Polar Bears followers will be applauding along, and they'll be on some level going, "Mike, that's how it's done, Brad." Because you packed a lot of stuff into a nice visual presentation, and not to worry, folks. I honestly am trying to work my way that way. That's secretly why I brought Laura online here, so I could learn from her.
Well, and those hundreds of cats are there for anybody to use. So if you want to, take cats and use them in presentations or put them in a blog, they just make people relax. So feel free to use the cats.
We're presuming they're cat people. So there was a lot to take away from there, and I cleverly didn't have any notebooks on hand, so I'm trying to make mental notes as I went along. But as we discussed before we went online, the one with the 2 heads showing the different kind of growth mindset versus not growth mindset, we might be able to go back to that in a moment. And just briefly, what I learned through my whole travels through the mental health system and all the things we get told, we'll get told a lot of things, and this kind of thing is what we'll hear among them. When I started the Polar Bears 4.5 years ago, I can't believe it's that long ago, when I started doing all this research, there were a lot of things I knew were absolutely valuable, like all these growth mindset things. There are special challenges people with real ingrained mental health problems will have that makes these things more not only more challenging but more difficult to hear. They have a personal history of defeat Then there's a whole model for depression, the defeat model of depression, and it's not a matter of just going, oh, okay, do this and it'll all turn around. Nonetheless, folks, no, I'm frozen again. I'm just gonna. This happens, folks. Just hang on. I've just got to show you my name.
Yeah.
I should fix that and put polar bear in there somewhere. Then I got to refresh my screen.
But that brings it right back. That's great.
Yeah. So a bit of a workaround. So folks, everything Laura talks about is absolutely true. These are all some things I knew intuitively and had always done, but a lot of what Laura talked about are things I learned as I went along through my own journey over the last 5 years. And a lot of these things are absolutely more challenging to some of us. And I get into enormous, excruciating detail on the neuroanatomical and neurobiological basis for that. It's one of the reasons I get into the brain stuff so much. No two of our brains are alike. Almost all brains have certain things in common, but there's going to be variations that make certain things more difficult. And life experience up until the point you hit the polar bears or Laura's program, there's going to be a whole series of events that could make some of the challenges she outlined little more challenging for you than others. But that's why we're here, to understand these things and work past them. We, like I say in my blog and in many of my videos, however you got to wherever you are right now listening, whatever challenges you have, I'm frozen again.
Speaking of challenges.
Yeah, speaking of challenges, wherever you are in life, and let's assume if you're watching this video, you're one of Laura's students, and the chances are that a real good percentage of you, you're going to be dealing with university workload, some way of financing that university workload. You're going to be dealing with, who knows, parental pressures and all these things, and these things are just life. But you're going to have this extra obstacle, this handicap almost of having some relatively severe mental health problem that you're terrified of letting anybody know. So that's where the polar bears end of this comes in. This is why I'm here, and this is what I study and work on. And back to the point, wherever you are at this moment in time with Laura's courses and everything else you're doing, presumably through the University of Oklahoma, and whatever your family situation and your background, whatever background you grew up with is going to be part of who you are right now. It does not have to stay that way. And that's a big part of my program. Like Laura gives a lot of excellent tools, but it just somehow, for a lot of us, it'll just be more difficult implementing those tools. It's like we can see the tool right there, but we can't quite reach it and grasp it. And often this just adds to the frustration. Yeah. So between the two of us, Laura's offering all the tools. And again, and I've got some of my own unique ways that I developed for the polar bears that I'll talk about in a minute. Our goal is just to get to be able to reach those tools, touch them, handle them. And I'm talking, we're talking very metaphorically here. Right. All those learning tools. And sometimes it's just a matter of, first we can't reach it, or first it seems impossible. We can hear it, but the vision of it, we can't even envision that tool. It's been so lacking in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And, but here's Laura, and here's you, and she's talking about this tool. So now she does that excellent presentation. So now you kind of have this visual representation of a given tool, but you can't grasp it. It's like you literally physically can't grasp it, and it's you know you should, and then, oh damn it, to hell with it, but I have to, and there's this process, and this is the process we want to work on. Just get that extra thing, get that tool in your hand. You can feel the tool. Oh, it's not a cobra viper or something. It's not going to kill me, and then you can make that tool more yours, and that's part of the growth. That's part of growth is somehow getting to know these new mental tools, somehow getting our own, the mental tool she's talking about for a lot of you will be an outside abstract thing. It's like, a lot of, anything else in one of your courses, you look at it and you kind of understand it in the abstract, but not real world applications. So what we're working on here together is to get it from the abstract to something you can, touch and make part of you, and then start to integrate into your daily mental habits.
That's why I love the stuff that you do, Brad, this idea of the abstract and the invisible is so hard to grasp, like you're saying. But when people can start to think about their brains and actually learn about what goes on in that, invisible space up there, it can be really liberating, because most people you think of your brain as this lump of stuff, and it's kind of the opposite of a lumpy thing. It's dynamic, it's active, it's charging, it's doing things all the time. And if I can get my students to sort of, respect more the power of their brains, that would make me really happy, because they go to school and they get exposed to this vocabulary of smart and stupid, which is meaningless, right? The word smart means nothing. The word stupid means nothing. That does not help you understand the brain at all. It's this vocabulary that we've, passed on through school, through decades, through generations, and it's really harmful vocabulary. Smart is not going to help you. Stupid is not going to help you. Just get those words out of your vocabulary and learn some new words, including some words from the neurological sciences to help you appreciate that your brain is the most powerful computer on the planet, right? It's amazing. That's why I really enjoy reading the stuff that you share at Google Plus, Brad, about the brain itself, right there in your head, what it's doing right now.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, I for those who don't know me, if you're coming through this via the polar bears, old polar bear viewers, you're familiar with me in a lot of this. If you're joining us through Laura's world, and I'm this new guy, and I've got this polar bear stuff in the background, and Mrs. Bean is right there.
Oh, there she is. Yes, Mrs. Bean, the growth cat,
hanging out on my lap. This is the hardest thing, and coming back to growth mindset and fixed mindset. And I can't possibly get into my whole super exciting brain introduction thing, but I think I can envision more of a series on these.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But there's I'll introduce the brain another time, but you just have to understand, what I have to get you to understand is the vast untapped potential up there. I had another neuroscience blog. I called it Exploring Your Inner Galaxies.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, because that's literally how I used to think of it. It's just, you explore one galaxy of what you're capable of in your brain, and you think, wow, and we're talking stars as far as you can see.
Yep.
and each star representing something, and you explore that and you think, wow, that's got to be it. And then I don't know, Spock or somebody comes in and tells you that there's more galaxies.
More, exactly.
And you know, and this is what I discovered when I started learning all this stuff. You know, for those who don't know me, you know, I'm this fellow, Brad. I'm late 50s. My education, I'm completely self-educated. And starting 5 years ago, I was in horrendous states on account of my own personal mental health problems. And you know, and I'm, you know, the person you see today is completely and utterly unrecognizable to that person at the end of 2012. And some things happened which I don't need to relate here just now, but I started the year 2013 like a house afire. And you know, long story short, I just decided I really, you know, I could see there were a lot of problems in myself and mental health and you know, throughout the world that weren't getting solved. And you know, I looked at psychology, they're not solving it, psychiatrists. So I thought, damn it, I've got to learn how this thing works. And that was 4.5 years ago. And you know, I didn't know anything. I didn't, like I like to say, I didn't know a neuron from a carburetor, literally. And you know, this is at the start of 2013. By the fall of 2013, you know, this is 6 months. I'm taking part in conferences with neuroscientists who assume I have a degree in neuroscience. And it's only grown since then. And I'm not a braggy person, but this is just sort of the fact of the matter. I've got this long list of testimonials from people in various academic and neuroscience fields, you know, who will say, I know what I'm talking about. And the point of that, you know, I'm a guy past this, you know, I'm in my mid 50s at this point. You know, you're not supposed to be able to do what I just did. You know, but what I kind of discovered by accident was all this growth
Right.
mindset that Laura is talking about and the potential. And you know, just one of the things I was so motivated, and we really need to talk about motivation.
Right.
And curiosity and what that's all about. But curiosity, I just had questions, and I would not be satisfied until those questions were answered. So I just kept answering questions. And when the answers to those questions didn't seem satisfying, I kept asking more questions. And they basically amounted, what are the classic 5 questions, Laura? I started with why a lot.
Right.
What, how, who.
Yep.
Like, it's really that simple. You just, like, how does this work? Why does this happen?
Yeah. I love the 5 whys. Have you heard that one where you do
a
why?
Just 5 whys. Then there's that
why,
little,
why.
Yeah. And I just asked that over and over and over again. And I looked for the best sources I could possibly find.
Yep.
And so that was part of it. And then just motivation. Like I could just see a lot of suffering within my own life, within my own, you know, circle, you know, personal, real world circle of people, and then just enormous numbers of people online. And as I started writing the polar bears, I could see, you know, so many people suffering without answers, and I just became. I hope that's not. Oh, that's.
Sorry.
Oh, here we go.
You hear the telephone. Sorry about that.
It's not me. It's not me. Anyways, you know, so I was just enormously motivated. You know, burning desire to answer these questions. So what that boils down to, and it's obviously not quite this simple, but you know, if you have curiosity, you just simply want to know why. And back to Laura's whole thing and your life in university, you know, don't make it about, then I've frozen again. Don't make it about the A's and stuff, because that's what it's all about. It's the learning process. It's about true understanding. A's and all that stuff will come as a byproduct of that.
Right. And it's flipping who asked the questions. Like, I love the fact that your learning journey was all about questions you wanted to answer. You know, school unfortunately got turned inside out, where the teacher asked the questions. No, that's not how it should work. The student should ask the questions that are meaningful and important to them, and we should just help people find the answers.
Yeah, well, I kind of get the, where the instructors ask questions. I mean, they have some endpoint they have to do with that particular lecture, course, or whatever. Those are just basic guideposts on the map. The whole freaking map is open.
And it's a big map.
Okay, Mr. So-and-so needs me to his questions basically, plunk a couple of posts in the map somewhere.
Right.
And the rest is up to you. The ways to get to those end posts, you can go anywhere you want, and then you have to make it your own questions. Okay, here's this goal, this end point we're supposed to get to, and if you make it all about your own questions, okay, how do I do this? What's the next step here, and so on and so on and so forth, and I can give a whole fun lecture on how this hacks your dopamine system.
Exactly.
I wish I had I actually, hang on, just how are we doing for time? I'm just going to throw this in there just to let me see if I have.
You have a dopamine diagram.
This is not the diagram I want, but this is just a spectacularly cool image of a part of what your brain looks like inside, folks.
And that was so galactic, right? So.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, your inner galaxies. Hang on. Oh, for Pete's sakes, I can't.
Oh, this is great. These are like teasers, and everybody's going to come back to hear the other shows.
Well, for heaven's sakes, I can't. Anyways, I'll teach you another time how to hack your dopamine system.
Mm-hmm.
You get that dopamine system going. This is what sex is all about. This is what all the fun stuff is all about. And you know what that's like.
And there's Mrs. Bean following her curiosity.
Yeah, you get that puppy jazzed, and you'll tunnel through Fort Knox for something.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these things, we get this curiosity and stuff, and we need these end goals, but you don't do it for Professor so-and-so's sake, because that'll never turn you on. Like who gets turned on by Professor so-and-so? Let's be honest. That's all stick stuff. You get to Mr. Professor so-and-so's end goal, or else you're going to get whacked by a stick, and maybe this
you're frozen again, but that's such a great pose.
I'm frozen again. An A is an A goes towards a degree goes to, who knows, and in theory, the degree is going to put food on the table, but, we're kind of finding out that doesn't really work.
Right.
So, but what you need, if you can always motivate yourself, and that motivation comes through questions, self-driven. A lot of what Laura's talking about with growth mindset is one of the key secrets to becoming a self-driven individual.
Right.
And if you set yourself up now, and I'm frozen again. Well, at least I'm frozen in an okay way. If you set yourself up now with a growth mindset, self-driven, there's almost nothing you can't conquer, because the truth is, and what sucks is with today's education, with the world changing as quickly as it is, by the time you graduate, most of the stuff you've learned, these false goalposts we go towards. Sorry, right. Professor so-and-so. But they won't be worth anything, literally.
And that's a hard thing for students to hear, too. And
it is. And then you're bitter and pissed off. You've got all this freaking student debt, and yet here you are. You have to go through this. And I'm not right. by all any means implying you should stop. But if that's one way. Again, we're always talking about different paths, and this is what Laura, and we've talked about this before, this is why this growth mindset is so important.
Right.
You do this, rinse repeat. It'll just, and I'll talk about zombie programs in the brain another time, right. And it just becomes part of who you are. And you're going to meet challenges. If you're not meeting challenges in life, it means you're not living. And anything worthwhile is on the other side of challenges. So you learn the growth mindset. You train your brain to just react.
Sorry, my husband just showed up. So
no, you okay?
I had a door open.
And I'm tempted to get into one of my old fart stories here, but I'll just very briefly tell you a challenge a couple years ago. Went through a lot of really difficult mental health challenges. These become physiological. My body's ability to produce energy broke down. So I was unable to work. I was put on a small pension, very, very limited means. For a while, a friend was letting me stay at his place, very low rent. And, and I thought I was okay there. And out of the blue, I just was told I had to leave.
Oh, no.
I was given 2 weeks, and I had nowhere to go. I had no money to go anywhere. You want to understand homelessness, folks. I'm thinking tent, do I get a tent, and where do I put that? Where do I put food? Just all the horror stuff you associate with true homelessness. Anyways, the solution I came up with was a cheap van. There's a whole Beanmobile adventure thing. So here it was. This once proud, hardworking guy was going to be reduced to living out of a 37-year-old broken down van with no heat through a Canadian winter. Not one of your American winters where you can go to Arizona or some warm place. A Canadian winter. There's nowhere to go worth for. So and this is with Mrs. Bean. Like, if it was by myself, it would have been difficult enough. But I have Mrs. Bean, all kinds of considerations with Mrs. Bean. So, I just applied all these things I've been learning. I created a whole narrative. I created this whole Beanmobile adventure narrative. And every day I woke up was not challenging. You're out in the middle. It's one day it's like 15 below Celsius. That's like 20 below Fahrenheit. It's blowing about 30 miles an hour. The wind chill probably about minus 30 Fahrenheit. Yeah, the day goes on. I got to get up. So every day I just have this, okay, Mrs. Bean, let's do this. And I would apply all this growth mindset, can versus cannot. Because folks, you're going to find yourself in places like I did in this little unheated van in the middle of a winter, and there's no choice. That's it. There's no choice. You do it or else. And there's hard lessons in life, and this is one of them. But you train your mind to positive mindset, create a better narrative, and let's do this. I don't know how, but we'll figure it out.
Right.
And this is 20 years later, who knows, down the road in your life, this is where all Laura's growth mindset starts to pay off. Okay.
Right. And stories too, Brad. That's so great that you shared that story, and people can also find a lot of inspiration and stories from mythology. So that's where all of this sort of intersects with the work that I do in mythology, you know, because the hero's journey is a hard journey, right? Even a life-threatening journey. And that's scary, but that fear shouldn't paralyze you. It can move you forward.
No, that's just it, Laura. I mean, you know, one of the things with modern people and actually all people throughout history, we view our world through this very narrow present lens, and we go through these difficulties, and especially true with young people, and you think you're the first people in human history to go through difficulties. You know, this is very natural. This is how our introspective mind tends to work. But the truth is, you know, humanity's never not gone through challenges, and I'm talking challenges that would make today's world look like a kindergarten recess time in the sandbox.
Yeah. Right.
So this thing is designed to get through challenges.
Exactly.
You know, and these abilities can certainly atrophy, but there's ways of poking in there and turning these things on, and that's what Laura and I are talking about. And I think we better tie this off for now. I think we have lots of fertile ground to cover here. So, you know, point being, I hope we have whoever is watching, we have your attention. You know, I have my approach and you know, my personal history, and it is an inspiring story. That's not just me. That's anybody who's heard my story.
Right.
It's inspiring. And we have Laura Gibbs and her years of doing this in a practical, nicely organized and presented way.
Right.
Familiar with me, you look at Laura, you're probably thinking, oh my God, thank God.
Yeah.
But anyways, here we are. So this is, as I say, you know, what I think of as episode 1 of part of a series, and I'm hoping to get other guests to speak in similar ways about things that are just going to move us forward, give us better, you know, learn more tools, but not only learning what the tools are, how we can personally connect to them and master these tools. And if you're around in the mental health world for a long enough time, everybody, a lot of the savvy ones will talk about their personal toolkit.
Right.
So that's what this is all about, folks. We're making your own little personal toolkit, you know, and you can, you know, whether it's, you know, quiver and bows and arrows, whatever you want to think of it. That's the fun part. Make any kind of metaphorical thing you want. This is Laura's ballywick. This is where all make it a fun thing. This is where fantasy comes in. Make it your, you know, your Captain America shield, whatever you want to do. But these are the tools. You know, it's like what was the first most popular video game? Oh my God, it was. But anyways, you enter, the name will come to me, or somewhere out there will know what I'm talking about. You know, you come.
Anyone who's played Dungeons and Dragons knows all about this.
Well, right, but anyways, you know, you go in there with next to nothing, and the whole goal is you're supposed to find these secret things and unlock this, you know, secret tool or secret sword, or you know, these things, and then you got to learn how to use the damn thing. And
well, it's already right in there.
Yeah, these are all things that are actually there. So anyways, that's what Laura and I do. You know, identify the tools and then how to make them yours and your personal toolkit in your quiver, however you want to think of it. So you can go through life ready to do battle, and you'll have all these different things with you at your disposal. Okay, Laura, thanks so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brad. That was really fun.
And we'll well, we'll do this again soon. We'll review this, kind of see where we can pick up another episode, and hopefully this is fun for whomever happened to come across this video. Bye for now.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.